Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about my favorite exercise again, the deadlift. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Alright, I've had a couple people ask me recently, what about cutting on the deadlift? In fact, in yesterday's video on the deadlift, how should you train when you're going to cut? And I've also had people ask me what do I think about touch and go deadlifts, which I've covered many times in the past, but you know what, we can refresh that. Alright, cutting in the deadlift. Let's just be honest here. It's hard to deadlift heavy when you're cutting. And we run into a bit of a conundrum when we talk about this. Because a lot of people choose to cut for whatever reasons, and I'm not talking about getting contest rip. I don't ever advocate that. I think it's stupid. As a fitness channel that is concerned with overall fitness, I just can't advocate that anyone ever do that. It's a bad idea. But some people want to lose body fat. I don't care whether it's for their health. Because, again, too much body fat isn't ideal for health. It's not ideal for fitness. Some people do just want to look a little better, and other people need to drop a weight class for their powerlifting. Because, again, the lightest weight class that you can get away with while maintaining an athletic level of body fat is generally where you're going to get your best Wilks score. So there are plenty of reasons to go ahead and cut if you want. So how do you maintain your strength on the deadlift when you do that? Because the truth is, unless you're a novice, don't expect to gain strength very much on the deadlift. You might, if you cut slow enough, in the right circumstances, your deadlift might go up a little bit when you cut. Because fortunately for us, with the deadlift, out of the big three exercises, the power lifts, there are studies that show that the deadlift has the lowest correlation to body weight, while the bench press has the highest. In general, your pressing strength is going to take the biggest hit as you lose body weight. Now, that being said, some people feel like, well, their deadlift or squat could go down when they're cutting. Usually that's because, number one, you're losing weight too quickly. Number two, you might be overreaching on these big exercises, because that's the problem we run into with the deadlift. The deadlift is fantastic. In a lot of ways, it would be the ideal exercise to push hard when you're cutting, because it works so many muscles through the body. It can build up so much metabolic fatigue. It takes calories to repair that damage. In theory, training with lots of volume or workload on the deadlift would, in theory, raise your TDEE tremendously. It could cause you to burn more calories. The downside, it requires calories to recover. You could run into a very fine line to where you start overreaching, start losing strength, start feeling like hammered dog shit when you're trying to cut and deadlift hard. It doesn't work. It sounds great in theory, but without hefty doses of drugs, in practice it doesn't always work out that way. So what I would say to people is your goal with the deadlift, use it just enough to maybe boost your overall energy expenditure, but you need to focus on maintaining your strength on your deadlift. And that's going to basically come down to, unlike the other video where I talked about how to deadlift multiple times a week, if you're cutting, you're going to need to scale that back. Maybe only deadlift once a week. No matter what else is going on with your training, deadlift once a week. Now, what I'm going to say, if you're going to do it with peak sets, you need to scale those back slightly. Meaning, if you've been doing 455 for 5 reps, I would recommend maybe scaling that back 5 to 10%. A lot of people don't want to hear that. You might need to work down with 405 to 425 for your 5 rep sets. And you know what? You're going to maintain your strength just fine on that. If you've been struggling hard, if like it's almost a 5 rep max for you, you can reduce workloads 10% and maintain strength on big lifts. People need to understand that. There's very, very little difference between 90% and 100% efforts when it comes to strength gains, muscle gains, things like that. That's been noted in different research over the years. You can work at 90% effort and still even gain strength in some cases. So don't sweat it. Scale it back to 405 if you have to. Alright, you're going to be a lot better off. The other option, which I would lean more in the direction of, let's say you're cutting, you want to induce some metabolic fatigue from your deadlifts and you want to maintain technique. Get lots of first reps in. You could come in and do accumulation type work once a week on your deadlift. Come in and work with about 7 or 8 triples. 7 or 8 triples. Now that'll work pretty well, particularly if you drop them down to maybe 80%. 75% would be even better, even 70%. Come in and maybe with 70% of your max. So if your max is 500, 70% is going to be pretty low, just to give you guys an idea. Sorry, my updates keeps trying to go on my phone here and it's failing. iPhone. Alright, so if you do 500, that's going to be about 350 pounds. I know that's going to sound low, but it is what it is. Come in and work with 350. You could even drop it lower, drop it down to 345. Undercut it, that way you don't use the micro plates. Go lower when in doubt on stuff like this. You could come in and do 7 or 8 sets of 3. Fast, hard, it will give you 7 or 8 first reps. That's still going to carry over to technique on your max with a moderately heavy weight. You're going to get about 21 to 23 reps with a moderately heavy weight. That's going to do some metabolic fatigue. That is going to increase your overall caloric expenditure a little bit. But you're going to be able to recover from that. You're going to recover from that just fine. And instead, I'm going to recommend the method that a lot of people do. Coaches like Bill Starr and others don't use the deadlift to build your deadlift strength or maintain it. Come in and focus on some power cleans, focus on your rowing, some pin lay rows, some power cleans. Those things will maintain your deadlift fine. And like I always recommend people, if you're just doing extra power cleans by cleaning up all your overhead work, which again is going to make you more athletic, it's going to make you stronger, more explosive in general to do all that, because all your overhead work is going to be standing if you're serious about overall strength and athleticism. Clean the weight up every time. Those extra cleans are going to start adding up real quickly when you throw those in. Also clean up everything off the floor that you can, and if you're doing that, that's going to help maintain and build your deadlift strength and speed and everything else when you're not able to do very much deadlifting. It's going to help you tremendously. So that's the direction I would go for that on deadlifts. On cutting, and don't push anything. Don't ever grind. Don't ever do anything that's too heavy. You got to scale stuff back about 10% and worry about just maintaining your technique and the overall muscles involved with the deadlift when you're trying to cut. You're going to be better off for it. And if you do it that way, you're not going to burn out as quick. You're going to be able to put out more energy training. That's going to let you burn through more calories. It's going to let you maintain muscle mass easier, which is really the goal when you're trying to cut down, drop a weight class, lose some body fat around your waist, whatever you're trying to do. Ideally, you want to maintain all your muscle and strength. That should be your ideal goal. All right, as to the touch and go deadlifts, I'm against these. You know, and there are people who say, well, George Lehman or other people coach them and train them. That doesn't change the fact that touch and go deadlifts can get you hurt. Doesn't change that fact. In my opinion, most back injuries from the deadlift come from people doing touch and go. All right, it's not because of people rounding their back, maybe on the lower back, but it's hard to round the lower back on a deadlift. Your form has to be atrocious to round your lower back. If you're dropping in and pulling in tight, there's almost no way you can round your lumbar region of your back on a deadlift with even the most basic of technique. All right, if you have a strong core, that even reduces it further. It is my opinion of observations over the years that 90% of people who hurt their back deadlifting in some way do touch and go reps. Touch and go means you don't reset. They bounce it off the floor. It's on the floor for less than a quarter of a second, less than half a second. It doesn't come to a complete stop. That is how people get hurt. And even worse are the people who do the Romanian deadlifts, to where they tap it sometimes. They try to get really close to the floor, but maybe one side taps the floor. That's how you shift your spine in a way to where you're going to end up herniating disc. All right, this touch and go bullshit that you see people teaching on YouTube, it absolutely has to go. This shit is hurting people, and anyone who's teaching people to do this needs to be called out. Now, I understand that someone like George Lehman is saying, look, all of my deadlifting is not about building technique, because normally full resets on every single rep is going to train you to pull your first rep better. You're going to get more strength out of the bottom. You're going to build more power out of the hole. You're going to get more technique work that's going to help you with your 1 rep max. Even if you're 5 or 8 or 10 rep sets, you reset for a full second on the floor on every rep and ratchet yourself in tight on every single rep. Yeah, you can't do as many reps, okay? You can't do anywhere near as many reps. You might only be able to do 3 reps on something that you could do 5 or 6 reps on doing touch and go. In fact, there are plenty of guys who their 2 rep max is what they touch and go 5 or 6 reps with. Had they actually been forced to reset it, they wouldn't be able to pull 3 reps because they're not training their strength out of the bottom. They don't have power out of the bottom. They're sometimes working within 90% of their max, and they're cranking out 5 or 6 of those. Yeah, it's good because they're building overall workload, and that overall workload might be good for muscle mass, and that's probably why guys like George Lehman do it. But he also has a massive strength base and is strong as hell on tons of different big exercises. He can get away with that. But the difference is he's also a genetic freak with a massive bone structure. unusually strong core. You've got to look at his overall structure. He's not at much injury of injuring his back, and he's never hurt his back doing this. Tons of lighter frame guys I see out there who maybe don't have a massive hip and back structure. All right, those guys get hurt doing this, and I've seen it happen repeatedly over the years. That is how you herniate a disc, for a whole host of reasons. That touch and go, just tapping it on the floor. Don't do that shit. If you care about getting explosive and powerful off the floor, improving your max deadlift, and staying injury free, you need to do a full reset on every single rep, meaning your first rep needs to be what your 5th rep looks like. All right, you do a full reset in whatever positions you do for premotor unit loading of lowering and ratcheting hips into the right position. You need to redo that on every single rep. You need to treat every rep like it's a competition max. You're going to be better for it. No, you won't get as much metabolic fatigue, but if you're trying to do deadlifts for metabolic fatigue, there are other ways to go about it than doing touch and go work. Just my opinion on it, and I think this will keep a lot more people injury free. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.